We'll be starting the session in just a moment. If you have any connection or technical issues, try refreshing your browser first. If this doesn't work, please go to the Help desk by clicking Breakouts on the left, or click the People tab on the right and search Help Desk to send a private message. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our 2020 MCURC Annual All-Member Meeting. I'm Greg Drescher, Vice President here at the CIA, and it is a true honor to open this important gathering of our MCURC community. We very much appreciate your engagement in the ongoing activities of the collaborative in what has been a challenging, almost surrealistic year. 6 short years ago, together with our partners at Stanford, we founded this collaborative, building on a vision to drive change and enhance the lives of our students in the institutions we serve, as well as in society at large. Menus of Change, a joint project of the CIA and Harvard, provides the evidence base and the call to action that underlies our work in this collaborative. We further fleshed out that foundation with our 24 principles of sustainable menus. Many of you have this infographic on the walls of your dining operations. And notwithstanding our clear-eyed view of the challenges at hand, we are relentlessly focused on still delivering deliciousness to our campus communities, because without that, we won't make much progress. The collective impact of this group, all of you, over the past few years has been nothing short of amazing. And then along comes this pandemic. In addition to the devastating human toll of COVID-19, we have seen what wreckage and disruption it has wrought throughout the food service industry. Many thousands of restaurants are closed, your operations have been turned upside down. And yet, as much of a crisis as this has been, it is not the only urgent item on our agenda. As part of a report we released this spring, we enumerated 6 lessons from the pandemic. The focus on quote-unquote underlying conditions as a driver of increased risk with the coronavirus has laid bare a food and health crisis in America of enormous dimension. These numbers not only speak of illness and disease and premature mortality, but also of unsustainable healthcare costs. At the same time, perhaps the biggest challenge of our lifetimes, climate change and the need to secure sustainable planetary health, stares us in the face. Fortunately, many of the solutions that address these challenges are fully within our grasp. All of you are engaged in advancing critical work in these areas as we gather here today. To help us move further and faster, we have developed a number of resources that I want to quickly highlight. Many of these revolve around the concept of Plant Forward, which fortunately is getting great traction within campus dining and beyond. In April, we released our Plant Forward by the Numbers report, which makes the business case for adopting this strategy. We'll be sure to get links to you for everything I'm now highlighting. Then in late July, the CI teamed up with Data Central to check in with consumers on whether this Plant Forward megatrend was still persisting or not during the pandemic. The Plant Forward Opportunity Report that came out of that not only includes some very positive news on this trend, but also some key insights on how to turn aspirations into behavior change. More on this in week 4 when Colleen McClellan joins us from Data Central. This spring, we teamed up with FSR Magazine to highlight innovators in the full-service restaurant sector who can inspire all of us with their Plant Forward work. Also, if you missed this year's Global Plant Forward Culinary Summit, you and your colleagues can view the sessions tuition-free at our Plant Forward Kitchen website. Similarly, if you weren't able to catch Menus of Change or catch all the sessions this summer, we recorded all of the sessions and they can be viewed at the Menus of Change site. And then a heads up on a couple of other upcoming CI programs that may be of interest. Though not specifically focused on health and wellness, our 22nd Worlds of Flavor conference in November, which we are offering tuition-free to professionals, will take us live to 20 countries around the world to meet chefs and experience food cultures. All great inspiration for advancing our food programs and our commitments to diversity and equity. For the dietitians on your teams or physicians on your faculty, I also want to mention our upcoming 2021 CIA Harvard Healthy Kitchens, Healthy Lives Conference. Also coming up in the fall of 2021 is the first ever United Nations Food Systems Summit. I think there will be opportunities with that summit for MCURC to share our unique insights as a collaborative on advancing food system change. So let's all watch for that. Finally, on a lighter note, I wanted to share this photo I took last August in Vietnam. Remember when we could all travel? Now, there could be a number of potential takeaways from this image, but the one I like is that even if we have to focus intently on the urgent issues of the moment, we also need to keep sharp eyes on the future. And with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Shirley Everett, Senior Associate Vice Provost at Stanford University and a longtime collaborator with the CIA, to also share some thoughts with you. Good morning, Shirley.
Good morning. Thank you, Greg, for such a great start to this session. And I want to begin by saying good morning, good afternoon, especially to our colleagues across the country. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this virtual series of the Menus of Change University Research Collaborative all-member annual meeting. And we had hoped to host you in person, but this unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic had other ideas. And I hope that all of you and your families are well during this most difficult time and that all is well at your institutions. I am certain that we all agree that our highest priority is ensuring the safety and well-being of students, faculty, staff, especially our frontline workers, and the communities we serve. I want to start by expressing my sincere thanks to the MCURC leadership, including Greg Drescher, Eric Montel, Sophie Egan, and all of the leadership, committees, and advisory councils for ongoing amazing work. It has been such a delight to work with them in advancing our important initiatives. Also, we realize the collaborative would not be possible without each of our valued members, and many of whom are on the call today. 6 years ago, the MCURC was co-founded by the Culinary Institute of America and Stanford University. And during that brief time, the MCURC has been working to break new ground, changing the way scholars and food service experts and business leaders interact around opportunities to advance successful food systems transformation within universities. And together, we created a compelling vision of cultivating the long-term well-being of people and the planet, one meal at a time. To realize our vision, we must work in alignment with shaping and shifting landscape in higher education to navigate new challenges. In this context, the collaborative efforts of the MCURC have become even more valuable as we accelerate innovation, advance menus of change, principles, and carry out pioneering research that Greg spoke about. The ability to pivot and collaborate is more important now than ever, and we must continue to redefine our service excellence and reimagine our future. 2020 has magnified the importance of racial equity. The social context brought on by recent events has placed the long-standing reality of racism and social inequality front and center. And over the years, many of us have worked diligently to effect change and fight for equitable experiences for staff in the Black community. The importance of bringing people of different backgrounds and perspectives to the table, of being willing to use opportunities we are given to create change, and of using food as a tool to break down barriers are all especially relevant and timely. The MCRC is placing a more deliberate focus on engaging and supporting Black students, chefs, researchers, staff, and leaders. Black community really has borne the brunt of and has been disproportionately affected by racism, COVID, wildfires, and other challenges. Our goal is to ensure the Black community is lifted and included. An important element of this initiative is supporting change makers in the Black community as it relates to food, health, and sustainability. So during week 3 of this annual meeting, we will hold a special program focused on racial equity. This will take place on October 21st from 11 a.m. to 12 noon Pacific Standard Time and is titled Racial Equity at the Intersection of Healthy, Sustainable, Delicious Food Choices. We will be gathering a panel of dynamic speakers that include celebrity chef Tanya Holland, Chief Marketing Officer for Produce Marketing Association, Lauren Scott, author of Healthy at Last, Dr. Eric Adams, and Velvet Frame founder and CEO and Stanford alum, Lauren Graham. This group is uniquely positioned to provide our audience with thought-provoking insights, ideas, and calls to action around imagining a more equitable, racially just food system. We look forward to having all of you join us in an inspiring session where we will gain better understanding and renewed motivation to find global solutions. As you can see, we have a lot to look forward to in our time together as we work to transform the food system and the planet, one student, one delicious meal at a time. Thank you for being part of our collaborative. And again, thank you for joining us today. And now, I'd like to introduce Eric Montel, Executive Director of R&D Stanford Dining and co-director of the MCURC. Eric?
Thank you so much, Dr. Everett. It is a pleasure for me to be here with all of you today. And I certainly want to echo my sincere thanks to everyone for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. I share in the gratitude for all of the great work that the MCURC members have done this past year and for all of your continued support of the MCURC. Many members and MCURC leaders have worked tirelessly to support research and education continuing in the collaborative. We know you have a lot on your plate, and at times it is really, truly overflowing with your campus responsibilities. In spite of this, you have continued to support the vision and mission of the MCURC at this critical time, which is greatly appreciated. I now also want to take a moment to thank our sponsors who make all of this great work in the MCURC possible. We wouldn't be able to have a collaborative without their generous financial, time, resource commitments, and also their ongoing program support. A number of sponsors have been there with us since the beginning of the MCURC, and I especially want to thank and acknowledge them. They were there when the MCURC was just an idea that hadn't yet been fully formed. These are our founding sponsors. Please join me in thanking Barilla, Pete's Coffee, Google Food, and the Mushroom Council. I also want to extend our sincere thanks and gratitude for the 2020 MCURC sponsors: American Seafoods, Applegate, The Chef's Warehouse, Lentils.org, Monin, Morningstar Farms, Nestle Professional, North Harvest Beans, the Produce Marketing Association, Pulmu One, Unilever Food Solutions, and US Foods. Now I'd like to pass it to our fabulous co-director, Sophie Egan.
Thank you so much, Eric. And honestly, you are the best co-pilot one could imagine for this great rocket ship that we call the MCURC. I'm Sophie Egan, the proud co-director of the collaborative, as well as an author and the founder of Full Table Solutions, a consulting practice that's accelerating solutions at the intersection of food, health, and climate. I'd like to extend one final welcome to you all joining us today. We sincerely thank each and every one of you for taking the time to bring your expertise, perspectives, and ideas to the dialogues that we're hosting over the coming month. And as an invitation to bring your enthusiastic engagement to this virtual series, I'd like to note that this is a meeting, not a conference. We say this each year to emphasize that your full participation is the most valuable asset during this time that we all have together each week throughout October. I'd also like to emphasize my gratitude for our volunteer leadership, our chairs, co-chairs, and advisory council members, for their leadership, passion, energy, creativity, and their fierce and unwavering commitment to many of change principles, pandemic notwithstanding. Lastly, a huge shout out to the entire production team at the CIA for all that they are doing behind the scenes to bring you this virtual program. Now, to get everyone warmed up, we'll dive into the first of 4 polls. We'll do one each day at the start of the program. So this is a little food for thought. How are you today? We're using a food theme you may notice here. Options are walking on eggshells, being cautious, cool as a cucumber, calm and collected, crying over spilled milk, worrying about things that can't be fixed, full of beans, feeling energetic, biting off more than I can chew, trying to do more than possible, or the greatest thing since sliced bread, life is excellent, or another option which we invite you to write in the chat. We'll come back to those options and see your responses in a moment, but for now, some notes on the technical side. So today's entire program and all of the general sessions from the following 3 days of the series will be recorded. The videos will be posted to the MCURC YouTube page afterward for reference, as well as in the member and sponsor portals on our website. Also, there will be a top takeaways resource, and all of the general session presentations will be shared at the end of the series. Don't forget to use the password emailed earlier this week to access all of those presentations. We are eager to actively engage with you through this very robust hop-in platform. In addition to our event chat, you can direct chat any individual participant by searching for their name under the People tab. A red dot and number next to the envelope on the top right will indicate that you have a new message waiting. So now let's take a look at our poll responses. Let's see. I don't see our poll responses. I see great poll options, which hopefully you're all taking advantage of. Maybe I have to take, there we go, I had to click one. Looks like the most common vote is biting off more than I can chew, trying to do more than possible, 36% of you. Certainly can relate myself. Next best option though, nice to see, is cool as a cucumber, calm and collected at 30%. So hopefully that cool as a cucumber will start to edge out the biting off more than I can chew. And the others will see some other options from you all over throughout the day. So with that, I'm excited to turn it back over to Eric, who's going to walk you through our MCURC 101.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And an interesting poll, cool as a cucumber or biting off more than I can chew, how closely those two were. Typically, when we meet, we go around the room as one of the first things that we do, and everyone gets a chance to introduce themselves and talk about where they're from. It's a great way to see who's in the room and who we will be spending or would be spending time with for our meeting over the next several days. This certainly would have occurred in this manner if we had been able to meet at Stanford, and I can say that we fully intend to hold meetings in person again. We are planning, I would say at this time, to hold our annual 2021 all-member meeting in person at Stanford next year. This is our hope and our plan for 2021. Today, since we are meeting virtually and we won't be able to go around the room for introductions, it still would be great for everyone to know who is joining us today in this virtual meeting. So we're going to have the introductions in the chat. If everyone could please put into the chat your job title and the university or company that you work for, that would be just great. This will certainly help us to see who's in the room and who's part of our community and taking part in this great MCURC virtual community today. I would also suggest to please use the chat function to ask us any questions along the way, either today or throughout the 4-week series, and we will certainly do our best to respond to each of them. We want to give everyone an opportunity to ask a question at any time, and the chat's a good place for that. Also, give a +1 in the chat if there's something you hear along the way that you really like and you want to emphasize. Our excellent colleagues in the CIA are monitoring the chat. And just as a reminder, when you hear that the CIA is monitoring your chat, you may want to be careful about what you type into it. Well, okay, so this is really our friends at the CIA. This is the other CIA. But let's keep the chat focused on the MCURC, even though there are probably many, many, many other important topics that everyone can have at the top of their minds today and at this time. So Stanford University and the CIA have had a long-standing, excellent working relationship over many years. These are two great organizations and have terrific people leading them. The work between Stanford and the CIA really began when Dr. Everett and Greg Drescher met together years ago to collaborate on bringing chefs into the Stanford University dining environment. And also, they wanted to look for ways to have chefs play an even more significant role in enhancing the culinary program on the Stanford campus. And hard to believe, but this was 25 years ago, and also at the time when the CIA was founding its great new campus at Greystone in beautiful Napa Valley. At Stanford, there's also been a long-standing great working relationship between Dr. Christopher Gardner, one of Stanford's and the nation's leading nutrition researchers, and with our team in Stanford Dining. We have collaborated with him on numerous projects, and I would say Christopher has really helped us in advancing our knowledge and understanding of nutrition science and protein consumption, among many other nutrition and research concepts. Christopher is the first person who clearly identified to me the differences between research and operations, how these two worlds were so different, but it was so important for us to work together to produce even greater outcomes. Also, Christopher and Greg Drescher have been working together for a long time on numerous projects and programs together, especially the Menus of Change program. As I am also a CIA alum, it is almost became a natural evolution for Stanford and the CIA to work together on this critically important strategy of delicious, healthy, and sustainable menus, and to bring together researchers and operators. This became the idea for creating the MCURC back in 2014. So now this is our 6th year since the start of the MCURC. And the collaborative continues to evolve, grow, and develop based on the feedback and input of you, our valued members. Your voices as collaborative members continue to be a very powerful one and important one for shaping the MCURC. Sophie and I consistently seek out and respond to members' feedback so that we can shape the MCURC in a way to create what we see as the greatest value, or here is the greatest value for all of our members. Our vision is to cultivate the long-term well-being of all people and the planet, one meal, one student at a time. We have added the word all in front of people to clearly and completely indicate that the collaborative is for everyone to benefit from the important work occurring in the MCURC. This is especially relevant now, as 2020 also happens to be, among many things, the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So I'd like to pose a question for us all to contemplate. Do you think we have accomplished as much as we would have hoped to do in the last 50 years? With every year getting hotter than the one before, I would guess that we have not arrived to the place that we would like to be, and we are all hoping for more change. I would also believe that 50 years ago, there was a belief that there would be many of these issues that we're working on would be probably solved by now. But still, we have a significant ways to go. And we are not only in the pandemic together, we are together in working to reduce the impact of climate change. The importance of this, as science and research have clearly demonstrated, is even more important today. The work that you are doing in the MCURC will allow us to accomplish so much more towards a better, brighter, cleaner future than all of the great work that's even occurring at your own and our own individual institutions. Together, we can achieve greater milestones and help and support each other along the way. There are certainly many examples of this, but an example of it in the MCURC is the collective impact. By setting measurable goals, this will help us to achieve this great vision together of healthier people and a healthier planet for all. And you'll hear Sophie talking about this in greater detail later today. Next slide, please. Our mission in the MCURC is a collaboration of forward-thinking scholars, food service leaders, executive chefs, and administrators for colleges and universities who are accelerating efforts to move people toward healthier, more sustainable, and delicious food using evidence-based research, education, and innovation. You will see many examples of this over the course of the 4-week all-member meeting series. As we work at universities and colleges across the nation and even the world, we have a common core belief that students are the best and most powerful way going forward towards creating a healthier, more sustainable future. To provide some perspective of what this means in terms of the MCURC member institutions, in total, the member institutions are actually serving some 800,000 meals each day to their students. That is a lot of meals that are being provided to students each day, and these are a lot of meals that can be delicious, healthy, and sustainable, and truly impact students' food choices. However, if you look at the amount of meals these same students will consume over their lifetime, it's a whopping 15 billion meals. Now, that is a really big and powerful number. This is the number of meals all of our current students will consume over their lifetime. That's really an unbelievably large number. We also know that our great students will be tomorrow's leaders. They will create their own companies that may include robust food programs for their staff. They will also become parents. This means the number of meals they will influence is exponentially more than the 15 billion meals they will consume. Working with students closely, for us, they will be able to create this better food future. Partnering with them will help to make better food choices while they're in college, and this is really important work while they're here. It is also critical that they learn as much as possible about healthy, sustainable, and delicious food as a key concept while they are with us. They will be able to take this with them into the future. They are truly the ones who will change the food system. The greatest power is with students for their and for all of our future as well. The MCURC brings together roles that often do not work closely together in a university setting. And this is the worlds of operations and academics. Academics and operators often do great work, but they are in silos. Many universities will have a great dining program and a great research that is occurring on the same campus, but that doesn't mean they necessarily interact with each other. The MCURC brings together senior university administrators, academics, nutritionists, sustainable managers, dining directors, executive chefs, and students to work together and accelerate innovation on their campus and across the member institutions utilizing the dining halls as living laboratories at multi-site universities. The third type of groundbreaking collaboration is across disciplines within academia to truly address food system-oriented research questions. This multidisciplinary approach is essential, and yet traditional research models often are siloed within academic departments. These types of research are truly innovative within the MCURC. The research and the work that occurs in the MCURC is founded on the 24 Menus of Change, also known as MOC principles. These principles are based on menu concepts and operations such as leverage globally inspired plant-based culinary strategies, to principles based on food and ingredients such as move legumes and nuts to the center of the plate. Now in its 8th year, the Menus of Change has established a compelling new agenda for the food service industry, typically through an annual leadership summit at the CIA's Hyde Park campus, though this year was a pivot for them as well to a virtual program. The MOC also produces an annual report on the state of the industry and an ongoing series of toolkits and guidance for food service professionals. More information about the Menus of Change and the MOC principles can be found at menusofchange.org. The MCURC has members across the world, including 59 colleges and universities in the US, Europe, and in Asia. The MCURC also includes 2 ex officio members, 5 research collaborators, for a total of 250 members. And as you will see from this slide, the membership is made up of both public and private universities. And the members are a cross-section of the US as well. We have members who represent many aspects of the nation, and it's important to mention that the diversity of membership provides many different points of view. This is important to us to ensure that programs that we work on and develop together are usable and workable for the entire university and college segment, not just that they are for a few universities. We want to broadly share as much of our research and project findings as possible. The MCURC also has several international academic members and 2 ex officio members in Google and the US Olympic Training Center. We now have a number of research collaborators who help us to think critically and to provide their subject matter expertise on strategic initiatives in the MCURC. The Research Collaborator Program started in 2018 and continues to grow based on strategic MCURC initiatives. The 5 research collaborators who we work with today are Eat Foundation, Food for Climate League, leanpath.org, ReFed, and the World Resources Institute. We are also continuing to grow the membership, and we intend to grow it each year in a way that makes the most sense for the collaborative as a whole. I would now like to take a moment to welcome our newest university and college members for this year: Michigan State, Pomona College, University of Texas at Austin, Paul Bocuse Institute, and our new research collaborators, Food for Climate League and ReFed. Please join me in welcoming these great organizations to the MCURC. The MCURC organizational structure includes 2 councils, one an advisory council that is made up of academic members, operators, and subject matter experts who advise the MCURC on its strategic future direction, and a leadership council which includes the chairs and co-chairs of the professional committees and working groups. There are 4 professional committees for some of the roles that are part of the MCURC, and there are 2 working groups, one for research and one for education. These 2 working groups are responsible for keeping the research agenda moving forward and for providing the programs and education materials for our members, and also importantly beyond the MCURC to utilize on their campus. It is important to note that the information and research being created in the MCURC is for all universities and colleges to utilize, not just for our member institutions. The Education Working Group and professional committees create resources for communicating MOC principles, training materials, and inspiration. A few examples of the resources that have been created are a compiled list of food waste reduction strategies, plant-forward recipes from the executive chefs, and a proven toolkit for using indulgent language that increases the vegetable consumption of students. There is also a MOC principle gap analysis to help prioritize the 24 principles for universities to work on and to measure their project. progress. A seasonal MOC event schedule by month for incorporating the MOC principles into campus events. MOC principle best practices and how to implement them in the kitchen, and a terrific document from the executive chefs on protein flip strategies from their campuses. There are two types of research in the MCURC which utilize the dining halls as living laboratories. Traditional academic research, which is designed to contribute scientific knowledge and is shared in standard practice ways in the academic community. And then the operational research is either a program or a process evaluation and is used by operators to improve their dining operations. The method used in academic research is investigation based on scientific inquiry, and the method used in operational research is to test and iterate rapidly ideas and what is, we would say, really the timing needed for operators to be able to implement these research findings. In both cases, the research data is thoroughly analyzed for both academic and operational research. The results for academic research are intended for peer-reviewed academic journals and often follow the IRB process, while the operational research is intended for trainings or guidelines to be used by operators. As we continue to merge these worlds of researchers and operators, we have clearly realized and understand that the academic research can often take long periods of time to be completed because of the rigorous academic standards required. And at the same time, operational research needs to be quick and iterative and must be at this faster timing to be useful. There are 6 research agenda areas that the MCURC has set as the long-term strategy for the research working group. Number 1 is the plant-forward diets, including strategies such as the protein flip. Number 2 is food waste reduction and recognizing the importance of this in terms of climate impact. Number 3 is reduced portion size, where quality is emphasized over quantity. Number 4 is carbohydrate quality, to improve the quality of carbohydrates that are served. Number 5, healthy hydration, to reduce the consumption of sugary beverages. And number 6, behavior change, to influence students to healthier and more sustainable choices. The MCURC is currently focusing in the research working group on 3 of the 6 total research agenda items. The first one they're focused on is plant-forward diets and working with chefs on the implementation of delicious plant-forward menu concepts, and also the evaluation of the idea of the protein flip strategy. The second one is drivers of food choices, to promote food choices that are healthier and more sustainable. This includes food labeling and using descriptive language, and the role of tasting tables and interactive food experiences. And the third one is food waste reduction and understanding how students' intentions on food selection, consumption, and waste, and the evaluation of food waste communication strategies in the dining operations. So you will hear much more over the next few weeks from the research working group and from the education working group. In the meantime, if we can provide support or assistance or answer questions, we want to hear from you and support you as best we can. If you are interested in community engagement, please reach out to Shannon Munns. For research inquiries, Ghislaine Chalamel is our research program manager and contact for this. For sponsorship opportunities that would be a good fit for the MCURC, Shara Oram is the perfect point person for this. And for any other general inquiries or assistance needed, please contact me, Sophie, or May. So let's bring Sophie back up. Hey, Sophie, how are you?
Hi, good.
So do we have any questions that need to be answered?
Not yet. You know, one of the things I think we can share with the audience is some of the questions that we are most accustomed to receiving.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Is, you know, how do I become a member? And we are delighted, as you noted, to have Shannon Munns as our community manager. And that includes fielding membership inquiries, guiding folks through the membership application, which is a fairly straightforward process, but she can certainly answer questions for any prospective members. So we certainly encourage everyone joining us today, if there are institutions or individual academic members that you think have a lot to contribute and to gain from joining the MCURC community. I'll type it into the chat in a moment, but Shannon Muntz, or Shannon, if you're there, if you can just kind of wave and insert your email address. It's smuntz@stanford.edu. That definitely is one of the questions that we most often receive is, how do I become a member, who's eligible, and so forth.
Yeah, so I would just add to that we look for self-operated dining departments. We're really interested also in making sure that we have a good, diverse mix of institutions that are members, a good cross-section of the U.S. And often we hear from our own members of an institution that's interested. And so there's a application process that Shannon sends out. And so we can take a look at things such as how closely aligned are they to MOC principles? What is their program about? Do they have relationships, which some of them do currently with academic members? And but we are always looking to continue to increase, the diversity of membership. And I think you'll hear that theme throughout the 4-week series.
Definitely. Yeah, and another question we often receive is about the resources that we produce. So sometimes the question is kind of, are these only for members? And that is absolutely not the case. We are, as a network, we are a working group, as was described before. And it's really for folks who want to contribute to best practices materials, crowdsourced publications, documents, who want to shape the research. But a huge part of our vision and of our the mechanics of how we work is in really ensuring that our materials are open source. So later on, Eric will walk through some of those, but just to kind of dispel any concerns about that, really the resources that we produce from the education side, these can be culinary documents, business strategy documents, some of the translational materials from our research, as well as research executive summaries and so forth. All of that is on our website, and we go to great lengths to present it at conferences, virtual as well, and to ensure that it's getting out into the hands of as many folks in higher education, campus dining, but also, of course, the larger food service industry. Campus dining is a unique accelerator of innovation. It's really at the forefront, especially with Gen Z and younger generations. And we also are always really looking for ways to export our materials for really lifting the entire industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And our hope, and again, I'll be talking more about it later today, is that through our website, those resources are easy to find. And that's something that we've certainly heard from members. And how do we make this accessible to others? And we've gone to NACUP's conferences. We've worked with ASHE. We do work with other associations and sharing that information out. And I think that's really a cornerstone of the MCURC. It's a sharing network within the MCURC and then also beyond as well.
Right, exactly. Well, I think with that, we are going to move on to the preview of the meeting. Thank you so much, Eric, for that overview. So you heard from Eric, about our vision and our mission and how we go about our work together. Now I'd like to share an overview of the annual meeting and really a preview of what's to come, and to think about topics like, what does it mean to collectively strive toward this vision and to tangibly work on this mission during a time of unprecedented change and daunting headwinds? From the pandemic to the climate emergency, the continued obesity epidemic, and our nation's reckoning with systemic racism, rising nutrition insecurity, and the seismic shifts occurring throughout both higher education and the food service industry, now more than ever, members are turning to the MCURC because it is, and always has been, solutions-oriented. They tell us they're looking to the collaborative for the community, the resources, the exchange of insights, and the crowdsourced strategies in order to face these ever-mounting layers of challenges on their campuses. So these are among the key topics that we set out to explore throughout the 2020 virtual offering of our 6th annual all-member meeting. Brought together by our commitment to menus of change principles, how can we best advance health, sustainability, and of course, deliciousness amid the new circumstances 2020 has brought? What does the future hold for campus dining? What roles can research, education, and innovation play in shaping a more resilient university food system? We believe a great many solutions can be found when worked on collectively by this network of 250 university-based food leaders, alongside expert research collaborators and mission-aligned sponsor organizations. We believe deeply in the power of collective action, and that times of crisis bring great potential for progress. With these spirits in mind, we look forward to engaging each of you, from our founding members and returning alumni to our welcomed guests, brand new to the work of the MCURC, in an insights-packed, highly interactive 4-week series. So as you can see here, each week's session will have a theme. And the first week, this week, our theme is the year in review, reflecting on challenges, milestones, and the hope, strategies, resources, and insights discovered across the MCURC community. Next week, we'll focus on research, pioneering multi-site studies for the collective understanding of what works best for nudging diners towards healthier, more sustainable food choices. In our third week, as Dr. Everett mentioned, we'll focus on innovation, from building supply chain resilience to imagining a more equitable and racially just food system. And in our final week, we'll focus on education, a Gen Z deep dive, learn from and about your students, from their evolving demands as diners to their visions of a brighter future as rising food leaders. Some of the major highlights throughout the program that you won't want to miss are the sessions that are coming up today, right after the sponsor member idea hubs. And I should note that those are in themselves a highlight, given the critically important role that our mission-aligned sponsors can play in advancing evidence-based research, education, and innovation in support of MOC principles. The presentations that follow those idea hubs today highlight 5 major publications and completed projects from throughout 2020 that we are very proud and excited to unveil. Next week, you'll enjoy the annual MCURC Research Showcase. This is always cited by attendees as one of the absolute highlights of the meeting. This year, it features numerous multi-site studies, as well as some fascinating findings from studies at individual member institutions. We also have a student research poster session that you should be sure to check out. In week 3, we are honored to be joined by a panel of guest speakers whom Dr. Everett described. They'll be sharing their insights on racial equity at the intersection of healthy, sustainable food choices. You won't want to miss the breakout session discussions and report outs that follow this important panel and these important conversations. And in our 4th and final week, be sure to join us for the MCURC Fellows Showcase and Fellows Poster Session. Those are our incredibly passionate students, and that work is led by the Education Working Group, featuring inspiring presentations from those student leaders and their amazing work to advance the vision and mission of the MCURC. That, along with a special presentation from Data Essentials' Colleen McClellan, have always been noted as fan favorites in past meetings, and they stand to be highlights again this year as well. So with that preview of the program to come, I'll turn it over to Shara, my colleague Shara Orm, Director of Corporate Relations at the CIA, and our sponsors for their video introductions.
Thank you so much, Sophie. We are extremely grateful to our generous sponsors for their support of the MCURC, especially in this challenging year. And as one way to recognize their engagement, we have asked each organization to prepare a short video or PowerPoint to share insights into why their organization aligns and supports the MCURC. And we'd like to roll those videos now.
Applegate does things right. We do things right for people, we do things right for the planet, we do things right for animal welfare.
Applegate has a long history of being bold and daring in the marketplace. It's always been a brand that's been about challenging conventions, challenging the industry.
If we have an opportunity to procure something that aligns with the heart and the love that we put into our food, that's a home run for us.
Secret to perfect pasta? The Barilla commitment to uncompromising quality. We're passionate about bringing the best possible pasta to your operations. But there's an art behind the science. It's the dedication of our team sourcing the best possible wheat, creating a custom blend of grains that cooks perfectly al dente, delivering the quality you expect in any dish, from our test kitchen to yours. When you cook with Barilla, you're bringing more than great pasta to the menu. You're bringing passion.
I think from the first day that I was exposed to what chefs were doing, I had the bug. The demand comes from our incredible customer base, which is probably the best chefs in the world.
The Chef's Warehouse has become known as a place where chefs can go to find innovative products and new ideas.
I see no end to our continuing to grow. It's a big continent, so we feel we're still in the first inning.
At Google, we're very passionate about impacting our food ecosystem, and the menus of change principles around healthy, sustainable menus have been a key resource. For example, we've concentrated on making our plant-based dishes stand out by focusing on factors such as flavor. We held a workshop on descriptive menu titles to entice Googlers to really make the healthiest choice. Another key principle has been leveraging plant-based strategies around global cuisine. We encourage our chefs from around the globe to share recipes and best practices to add to our repertoire.
Lentils are the plant protein tool that will help further your plant-forward menus. They are a key component to strategies looking to lower the environmental impact of food production. Lentils are a sustainable crop, fixing their own nitrogen into the soil and having a low water footprint. Cooking with lentils is the way to satisfy Millennial and Gen Z consumers' growing interest in healthy and craveable plant protein options, while also solving operational needs for cost-efficient and sustainable menu solutions. For more information, please visit lentils.org/foodservice.
At Monin, we believe that true and authentic flavors are inspired by nature. This belief has been a part of who we are for decades, and today continues with our commitment to clean labels. People want to know what is and isn't in the food and drinks they're consuming, and they're expecting clean products with simple ingredients. We're filling each bottle with the finest ingredients that nature has to offer. Nothing more, nothing less. Monin Clean Label, authentic flavors without compromise.
Morningstar Farms is committed to being the go-to source for plant-based proteins that allow chefs to reimagine the veggie experience and create items for their menus that keep customers coming back again and again. We couldn't be more excited about this partnership.
Here at Nestle Professional, our insights show there's a definite trend toward more plant-based menus. 50% of consumers are now ordering items featuring vegetables, and 38% of operators are adding vegetable-centric dishes. It's a trend we anticipated and were prepared for.
With the world's largest R&D networks, Nestle Professional is always ready to deliver inspiring food and beverage solutions. Our customers come to us because we are committed to enhancing quality of life and contributing to a healthier future.
From the beans you buy at the supermarket to the beans enjoyed by kids in the National U.S. School Lunch Program, to the beans served endless ways in restaurants. Dry beans are enjoyed all across the world, thanks to the hardworking farmers of North Harvest.
What makes dry beans unique in our area is our climate and our soil types and the annual rainfall that we get in this region. Without a doubt, North Harvest grows as good or better beans than anywhere in the world.
My name is Doug Welsh, and I'm the roast master at Pete's Coffee. Fatima Ismail is the manager of the Sopexca Co-op. She also keyed into something really special with the women producers, that by forming an identity, the sisterhood, Las Hermanas, they could take special pride in the coffee they produced. We use Las Hermanas coffee in a fair trade blend of coffee that we call Los Cafeteros. Las Hermanas is not just about great coffee, but about women's empowerment.
Hi, we are the Produce Marketing Association, or PMA. We are a trade organization representing companies from every segment throughout the global fresh produce and floral supply chain. At PMA, everything we do on behalf of and alongside our industry is in support of our long-term vision to bring together the global produce and floral community to grow a healthier world. We take great pride in continuously striving to realize that vision and know full well that we can't do it alone.
The sales staff tells our story from A to Z. They've come down, seen our facilities, seen how we grow. So I'm very confident that they can tell you what it is we do, why we do it that way, and why we're a value.
For US Foods to be into sustainability and have their whole sustainability program and buying local and sourcing local when applicable is a huge important ingredient to our partnership with US Foods. Being able to serve local and then tie it to a farm, be able to put all those pieces together, that's what the guests want.
Thank you so much to all of our sponsors for those incredible video introductions. And thank you for those of you who put some questions in the chat. We're sorry we were not able to address those yet, but we will definitely address them later today. At this time, we are going to head to the sponsor member idea hubs on the future of university food service. These sessions are structured as rapid fire 7-minute breakouts with member and sponsor pairings to share insights on your current and future operations in order to brainstorm together on practical resource development. University and sponsor members have received calendar appointments with the details of your Idea Hub session schedule for today. In addition to facilitating connections, one of our overarching goals with these meetings is to allow our sponsors to come together as a group and develop projects and resources for our MCURC community. In order to make the best use of these quick breakouts, we have developed a discussion guide to facilitate the sessions, and you can find a link in your breakout room chat. Once you enter the breakout tab on the left, you will click on your university room and then share audio and video button to engage in the discussion. Sponsors will join each room at the designated time. If you don't see your university logo on the breakouts page, see the schedule to see if you have any meetings scheduled today, or go to the help desk to double check with our colleagues. If you do not have a meeting, we encourage you to connect with other members in the networking tab, also on the left of your screen. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the Idea Hubs, and we'll see you back on the stage at 11:25 a.m. Pacific time.
Well, welcome back, everyone, from the Idea Hubs on the future of university food systems and networking time. I certainly hope that you found this to be a lively session and a valuable discussion. So this is the third year, or sixth year rather, of the MCURC, coming from a first discussion on the Stanford campus, as I described earlier, where Greg, Shirley, and I talked through the idea of whether universities would be interested in working together on the MOC principles. Also, as noted, of particular importance to us was the working relationship that we have at Stanford and have had for a long time with Dr. Christopher Gardner. Our hope was to replicate operators and academics being able to work and collaborate together on their campuses and across MCURC campuses. Out of this first discussion, we invited 24 universities to meet at the CIA campus in Napa Valley to discuss what a collaborative could look like and if there was mutual interest in working together. I would say it was really an inspiring conversation, and there was overwhelming interest, with some universities even coming to California just for this half-day meeting. In 2015, our first all-member meeting occurred here at Stanford, where we met over several days and established this idea and practice that we would come together each year and work together in a meeting and not a conference format. We heard loud and clear from members that there was a desire to work together in person over several days and to share among all of the members the current work that is happening in the MCURC, plus future plans of what would be occurring in the professional committees and working groups for the future. And we certainly look forward to seeing each other and being in person again. The first culinary project of the Protein Flip Culinary Strategies was also released in 2015. In 2016, several MCURC members presented a keynote address at the NACUFS National Conference, where the NACUFS members were also called to action on the idea of the protein flip. We completed our first research project utilizing the dining halls as a living laboratories. The first time this concept was used in the MCURC of blending these two different worlds of research and operations. It was a great success, and this would only get better over time. And you see, one of the ways that we look at our collaborative is this idea of a rocket ship. It just keeps taking off faster and faster. So in 2017, we held our annual meeting at UCLA, and the University of California president was a keynote presenter and commended all of the work that was occurring in the MCURC. She also asked us to help support their work within the UC system on their UC Global Food Initiative. In terms of research, the first of two multi-site research projects occurred this year. We learned a lot about the benefits of working together across universities as a collaborative on multi-site research, and how much more powerful research could be when it was occurring at many universities instead of a single university. This was truly a key finding for us in terms of research strategy. In 2018, we followed up with the idea of working together at a strategic level and maximize our impact by creating a collective impact program that focused on the protein portfolio at member institutions. You will be hearing much more about this and the status of this project later today from Sophie. Since the collaborative believes our most powerful work comes through students, we created the very important Student Fellows Program, which continues to be an essential and critical part of the makeup of the MCURC. We expanded our membership to international members, some of whom have presented their research at the annual all-member meetings. The Research Collaborator Program was created to bring on board leading subject matter experts to work on important projects, such as food waste, collective impact strategy, and other key strategic initiatives. In terms of research, the Operational Research and Seed Study Program was created with a first operational research project occurring. This was a coordinated tasting table project among a number of member universities. In 2019, the idea of a joint purchasing program was initiated, and we continue to work on this strategy. And the second year of the collective impact also occurred. Research included 5 projects with 4 more in the pipeline to be started later that year. The multi-site dish study and the Edgy Veggie Toolkit was also published in 2019. 2020 and COVID has brought many challenges, and everyone's plates are simply overflowing with COVID response, recovery, and resilience plans. And I should also say we certainly are feeling this as well at Stanford and the CIA. However, in spite of this, there have been 4 insights exchanges which occurred this year. The MCURC alumni program was created to keep our valued alumni connected to the MCURC network. A mentors program is being created as well. And the racial equity commitments have been communicated via an email from Stanford and the CIA, and a racial equity plan is in development. There continues also to be important research occurring at a number of member universities, including resilience of the food system, faith and fat study, and the impact of a seminar on students' carbon footprint in terms of their food choices. You'll be hearing more about these in detail throughout this 4-week all-member summit series. There's really a lot of great work that is continuing, and we really appreciate all of the hard work and support. And now I'm excited to say we've also been working on developing a great new website, as members have been asking for easier and better ways to find projects from the research and education working groups, among other important information. I'm really so pleased to announce that our brand new website is live and can be found at the same web location, moccollaborative.org. There's a great resource section you see indicated on the screen there. For members and non-members, that includes the Edgy Veggie Toolkit for anyone to download. There's also the Dish Study Executive Summary, food waste research, globally inspired plant-forward recipes from the chefs, protein flip strategies, the MOC Principles Implementation Schedule, plus a whole lot more. Also, the presentations from today will be available soon after today's program. Please look for these presentations at our new MCURC website, I would say probably in a couple of days. We also have the new member web portal, which includes a communication toolkit with items such as presentation templates, proud member buttons, MCURC newsletters, webinars, the member roster, and contact information. Folders for the research and education working group and the professional committees. For sponsors, the sponsors web portal includes member contact information, LinkedIn community information, newsletters, webinars, and soon will be sponsorship information for 2021. Thanks again to all of our sponsors for their support of the MCURC. Our LinkedIn community is a private community page for members and sponsors and alumni to share information about their programs, to encourage each other, and to expand your network with experts in your field. We also include updates on the MCURC. Members can use it to reach out to each other for assistance on solving complex issues and problems. And we invite and welcome you to share your ideas in this community space designed for you. We had 4 insights exchanges this year with great participation in each one, including getting the most out of the MCURC, MCURC and COVID, which was a check-in on how members were operating and addressing issues during the early stages of COVID, a food insecurity insights exchange, and finally one on COVID pivots. There's been a number of former members who have changed roles, retired, or there are student fellows who've graduated, research collaborators who are in a different role, or members who may work entirely in a new industry or work at a university that's not eligible for membership. So we created a MCURC alumni program, which allows our alumni to access webinars, insights exchanges, and so much more. We're pleased to welcome back a number of alumni who are instrumental in creating and building the MCURC. And we're pleased to welcome them into our community again. Coming soon will be a new mentoring network, which will help to foster the next generation of food leaders. Students will be able to be mentored by academics and/or professional roles in their area of interest. The idea of this program is to have a robust network built on the great work occurring in the working groups and student fellows program. And importantly, in terms of racial equity, we recently sent out an email to all MCURC members about our progress to date. In week 3, as you've heard today, there will be an all-member MCURC Summit series with an important keynote and panel on racial equity at the intersection of health, sustainability, and delicious food choices, moderated by Dr. Shirley Everett. I encourage all of you to attend this important session. We are continuing also to develop our racial equity plan, and the hope is to have it released sometime in early November. We'll be looking for guidance as well from a soon-to-be-formed racial equity committee that will include both members and sponsors. More information about this is forthcoming, and we welcome the opportunity to hear from you about this important topic. And so this concludes the year in review of 2020. I hope you see that the MCURC continues to develop groundbreaking and important work in spite of whatever challenges are occurring for all of us. Thank you so much for the key members who took the time out of their busy schedule to guide, support, and develop these important projects. Now I'm going to ask Sophie to quickly join me on the virtual stage. Here she is. Hey, Sophie.
Hello there.
So please put your questions in the chat if you haven't done so. But I'd like to start off, maybe, Sophie, I did see, and I know you did too, a couple of questions already. So Mark Hayes has asked us about alums. Are they permitted to attend in-person conferences? And of course, next year's conference will be at Stanford, and the answer is yes. So we absolutely would like alums to be able to join our in-person conferences. We value their participation. And then Frank Bailey also asked about what's the growth, what is our projection for growth within the membership? And I think that's a really great question, because one of the areas that we continue to look at is the southern part of the U.S. How can we have southern members? We have had a few join us along the way. We're continuing to look at that as I would say a region of the nation. What do you think, Sophie?
Yes, exactly. And that also relates, of course, to our forthcoming racial equity plan. One of the areas of interest in terms of specific increase in membership would be from historically Black colleges and universities.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly those are geographically and for diversification purposes really critical goals that we have, and so something that we'll be focusing our attention on. Of course, too, you also shared just in terms of the sheer volume of our combined purchases and the impact that we can have on the food system, on supply chain. So we do also look for larger dining programs. There's I think you said 800,000 meals currently. Love to get that number to 1 million. Sounds like a nice number.
Exactly.
So those are what I say at the initial stage. And then, of course, too, as you're going to hear, we have a robust research agenda, and you're going to see some really clear examples of that next week during the research presentations. But we're always looking for fantastic researchers to bring forth their own research questions, ideas that they want to roll out in this unprecedented multi-site behavioral research model that we've created. And so that may be individuals who have that research, who share our passion for this multidisciplinary research approach, and who may have some of that expertise to bring forward.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point. So, and again, we always look for members to bring forward either the name of someone they know at another university who may be interested in a program that they feel would be a good fit for the MCURC. And I would say it's, it's really been an organic process at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we've done some, really great diligence over the years in understanding who sort of appreciates, for example, the power of flavor, deliciousness. It's not every academic faculty member that you meet who really sees the critical opportunities in engaging with chefs, with culinary professionals, with dining directors. And so that, of course, is an element. And so we've done some of that more focused outreach based on papers we've seen or presentations we know of. But as you said, we're always looking to learn of those folks. So, Eric, we have a question here from Amber Johnson.
Sure.
Are there plans to extend the knowledge and learnings of this group somehow into college programs that aren't self-op?
Oh, that's a really great question, I would say. And So the learning and the resources that are available are for anyone, including those that are universities that are not self-operated. So and I think that's an important clarification. In terms of membership, the membership is really made of self-op, because the difficulty is having competing management companies essentially in the same room. It's difficult for them to share proprietary information. So that's why our membership is made up of self-operated campuses. But in terms of learning, research, outcomes, we absolutely want to make sure that's as broadly shared as possible.
Right, and one example of that is around this time last year, we had the publication of the DISH study. This was the largest multi-site study ever conducted in multiple dining halls across the United States. And we then, as soon as the executive summary and the Edgy Veggies Toolkit were released, we went on a major campaign presenting that to all manner of groups throughout the industry. So we had, for example, presentations in front of the Healthy Menus R&D Collaborative the CIA runs. That includes Sodexo, Aramark, and many other fast food chains, others in the industry, as I mentioned before. What we produce is for lifting up the entire industry. So certainly many of those contract food service companies do have college programs as part of their portfolios. So the last piece that Greg wanted to mention, just on the member growth strategy, which I certainly was also going to point out, was that we also are interested in expanding our international collaboration. So we want to very selectively identify some number of additional international university members from Asia, Africa, Europe, and South and Central America. So if anyone is working with universities abroad that should be connected to our work, please do let us know. This is of great interest to us and has huge benefits for all kinds of reasons in terms of really enhancing the research that we pursue in the future.
Great point.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric, for that presentation. And we hope attendees will continue to raise questions and share your comments throughout the program. So the second half of our year-end review session is actually now a series of report outs. The first is, these are really about completed projects that have occurred throughout 2020 that we're very excited to share with you. The first is a report out from a working group. The next is one from one of our professional committees. And the last is from a collaborative-wide initiative. So first up, we have the report out from the Education Working Group. And this is launching new platforms for cross-pollination and student engagement. I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Maureen Timmons. She is Director of Dining Services and the Interim Director of Business Services at Northeastern University. And she's also the chair of the MCURC Education Working Group. Don't worry, Maureen has a clone. That's how she stays cool as a cucumber. In all honesty, I really have to thank Maureen, Eric, and I do for her dedication. Very few folks in the MCURC community match her commitment. She's been with us since the very founding of the MCURC and in this important leadership role. So thank you so much, Maureen, for all that you do. And please take it away.
Thank you, Sophie. Hi, everyone. Sending a virtual hug to everybody, because typically this is our family reunion when we get together, and it feels like a family reunion. And a warm welcome to any new MCURC members and guests, for sure. It is my great pleasure to chair the Education Working Group, and I am honored to introduce my co-chair, Julie Stelmazik. Julie is the the manager of regional and sustainable food systems at Boston College. She is also my co-creator and co-conspirator. You will hear more from Julie soon. I am also delighted to introduce our Northeastern Fellow, Allison Dale. Allison has been working with us for about a year now, and she's a grad student studying public policy at the College of Social Sciences and Humanities. And Professor Christopher Bassa also works very closely with Allison and I here at the university. Allison has helped us with our food literacy pop-ups. She's helped Julie and I with Education Working Group, which you'll hear more about soon. And she's also currently helping with some research for the Research Working Group. So Allison has done she is all MCURC all the time. Today we're going to offer just a little taste of what's happening in the Education Working Group, otherwise known as the EWG. You'll hear more about all of what we're up to on the 28th, so come back and visit us then. I'm gonna give you a little bit about EWG. So the EWG was created to develop educational programs like the Fellows Program and to curate content like the Educational Exchange, to bring the Menus of Change principles to life in alignment with the MCURC vision, which is cultivating the long-term well-being of all people and the planet, one student, one meal at a time. Let's see here. Okay. So edX, I'm going to talk a little bit about edX, and then Julie's going to come in and share some more about the fellows. We're again created and curated curricular and co-curricular educational resources for teaching college and university students through the Menus of Change framework. Like the collaborative, edX is a hub for sharing for members and fellows for them to use for inspiration for their projects. It is very much like the collaborative itself. It is a major collaboration and co-creation. So please share your content with us. Allison will share a little bit more about how to do that soon. Next, I'll invite Allison to share our edX website that she has helped us create. Allison, over to you.
All right, great. So if we could go to the next slide. All right, so the education exchange, as we sort of mentioned before, is meant to be a place to combine the academic and research goals of MCURC. And we wanted to make a website where we could share different materials and resources, such as syllabi or training instructions for staff on the principles and stuff like that. So if we could go to the next slide, we can dig in and see how you can use the site. Great. So the site is for anyone who's interacting with students. It's not just for academic members or researching folks. At the top of the page, you'll see a brief introduction of what edX is. And then below that, we have linked a Google form where you can upload submissions for the website. So whatever materials you'd like to share and think could be useful for other members. And below that, we have different examples of content that you can access through the site. Finally, at the bottom of the page that you can see on the bottom right of the screen, we have an exit survey for members to provide feedback on resources they've used. We ask them how they utilized it, how they could be adapted and changed for future iterations. Next, just wanted to share more about the types of content we're looking for. The site features curricular content and co-curricular content. You can access that through a drop-down menu at the top of the screen. And curricular content is pretty straightforward. That's anything from any learning opportunities, like you can find the syllabus for the food literacy class that I helped Maureen and Professor Basso with the past 2 semesters. But co-curricular content, just to go into that with a little more detail, it's anything from tasting tables to food literacy materials that we do in partnership with the research working group and more. Now, Julie's going to talk a little bit more about the fellows.
Thanks, Allison. So the Fellows Program grew out of a need to engage students more actively with the MCURC collaborative and principles. 2 years ago at Princeton, during the annual meeting, the EWG group brainstormed what a fellowship might look like. That spring 2019, we launched with 6 pilot universities and since have grown to 14 this fall. Fellows conduct research projects under the supervision of their advisor, which explore the MOC principles on their respective campuses. They have studied everything from measuring greenhouse gas emissions of dining meals to co-teaching courses on food and the planet. Past fellows have become part of the greater MCURC family, and we hope they will continue to engage with the collaborative in their careers post-graduation. On October 28th, as Maureen mentioned, we will be hosting a fellows showcase with a rapid fire session of 7 current fellows from Boston College, UC Berkeley, Rutgers University, and the University of Maryland. Many members have shared that it was the highlight of last year's meeting, so we hope you can tune in. Allison is now going to show you quickly the site that she built as part of her fellowship at Northeastern to foster community amongst fellows. Allison, over to you.
Thanks, Julie. So the Fellows website started out as an archive where we could access projects from previous Fellows, and we wanted to expand upon that and really help to build the sense of community between the Fellows since we're all across the country. We have different projects and descriptions on the site where you can find inspiration for projects and see the positive impact that Fellows have had on each campus. And we have, aside from the homepage, we have 4 main pages of the website. We have a project archive, which I mentioned has previous projects from all of the different schools. We next have a blog that the Fellows from the spring 2020 semester did. We thought it might be a nice way to find some closure at the end of a tumultuous semester where most of us weren't able to execute our projects as completely as we'd hoped. And there's some interesting stories on there. Next, we have examples of the posters, which will be shared in the final session in a few weeks. And then we finally have more of the member-generated project ideas, which actually came from group sketches at the fall 2019 session, the member meeting. And we have resources and ideas from topics on sustainability and greenhouse gases, curricular content, co-curricular content, food waste, and health and nutrition. So that's essentially all you can find on the website. We're really hoping to ramp up the content and hope that they can be great resources for all members, not just exclusive to us in academia. And thank you for your time. We look forward to hearing all about everything else in the rest of the meetings. And we're looking forward to sharing more projects from our Fellows in the final session. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Allison, Julie, and Maureen. And a quick question that we had was about where folks can check out these websites, and we'll send those out following the meeting to make sure that Fellows who haven't yet taken advantage of the Fellow site, as well as faculty and culinary professionals in dining programs, can contribute to the great curricular and co-curricular content on the Education Exchange. So thank you so much. I mean, I think there's a couple of really great themes that came through in that presentation. You know, one is clearly this interplay between research and education, the way that the outcomes of a research initiative can then become educational materials that can be taught, can be turned into syllabi and so forth. Also the great synergies between dining and between faculty. We define education very broadly and believe that education occurs in the dining hall as well. And of course, bringing dining professionals into traditional classroom settings. And then lastly, of course, is this intergenerational dialogue and our students first approach. Certainly you see through our Fellows program how much they contribute, how much they really have this community with each other as well, thanks in part to the site that Allison has created. But now with this project archive, they can really learn from each other, the cohorts year after year, and be inspired by past projects. So the other key piece, of course, is that we learn as much from them as we hope they learn from us. So with that, I'm excited to turn it over to our executive chefs who are going to share the second report out, unveiling the new Plant Forward University project. So I'm pleased to introduce Frank Bailey, Associate Director of Food and Beverage at Boston College, former MCURC Executive Chefs Committee co-chair, and we thank him for his tenure. Matthew Ward, Executive Chef of Residential Dining and at University of North Texas, as well as the co-chair of the Executive Chefs Committee. And Akeisha Haid, Executive Chef of Harvard University Dining Services, and our second fabulous co-chair of the Executive Chefs Committee. So over to you, Frank.
All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us to view the latest project from the Executive Chefs Committee, the Perfect Plant Forward University. This project came about as we chefs discussed our role in decision-making and our influence over plant-forward dining and how differently we would approach it if we were doing it all over again. The conversation was energizing and dense with participation from all members, and we realized we could gather our thoughts and ideas and offer it to those that were just starting the process of transitioning to a plant-forward university. While there are still recipes and inspiring photos, this project is more about the thought process and the partnerships that we think will help with the successful launch of a plant-forward program. I personally offer this as my final project as a member of the leadership. As many of you know, Erica Holland-Toll has left for the private sector, where she hopes to carry on the vision in a different sector of the industry, and I have left the realm of executive chefs to take an exciting new role in my department. I'm very proud of all that we accomplished, but I am also excited to see where the new leadership team takes the committee. I pass the torch to two very energetic, intelligent, and extremely capable chefs in Matt Ward of University of North Texas and Akeisha Haid of Harvard. So now I will hand it off to you, Matt.
Thank you, Frank. And thank Frank. I want to thank Frank and Erica for their leadership the last couple of years. I met Frank and Erica at the meeting conference last year, and they were nothing but professional and very energetic, and really got the group of executive chefs really excited about this project. And we had a really, really great time collaborating with each other to put forth this project, and it's something that we're really proud of. So the Almost Perfect Plant Forward University project, it's an informative guide for those colleges and university food service operators looking to navigate the process of setting up a plant-forward operation on their campus. We touch on why plant-forward dining is important and what the perfect plant-forward university dining hall looks like. The project touches on various parts of a successful plant-forward operation, such as who are the key stakeholders and what part do they play in setting up and executing a successful operation. It also explains how those stakeholders work in unison and how those relationships build a solid foundation for each operation. Each stakeholder plays a vital role in carrying out the vision of a plant-forward university. Those stakeholders include chefs, dining directors, university administration, vendors, various campus staff, farmers, which are on and off campus, alumni, and of course the student body that will enjoy those plant-forward meals on a daily basis. The project also touches on physical aspects of the plant-forward operation, such as kitchen equipment and some of our favorite food products and food analogs. It's also littered with success stories and touches on ongoing initiatives from participating MCURC colleges and universities. There's also a guide towards the end of the project that explains how you can measure your results and highlights some of the initiatives that MCURC and other universities have implemented to measure those results. And of course, the project concludes with a section with innovative recipes from some of our participating colleges and universities. And that's my favorite part of it, is to see what other colleges and universities are doing out there and learn from their experiences and take those and institute those into our own colleges and universities. So I just wanted to say that this was a really great project to work with all the executive chef committee members. And I'm going to turn it over now to Akeisha Haid, my partner in crime, moving forward. And I hope that we carry the torch that Frank and Erica have given to us. So Akeisha, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So like I said, I get the toughest spot because I get to go last after these two great gentlemen, but I'll do my best. So one of the things that I really want to drive home with everyone with the MCURC and the Executive Chefs Committee is that we really want to get everyone engaged, but most of all, the direction that we're going in this year. With the Plan Forward project, we've learned so much, but we've also seen that times are changing. We're working through a pandemic, which has really changed everything that we've been doing and how we've been doing things. So now we want to take that project and really see how we can integrate it into what our dine-in services look like at the moment, where do we go from here in the future, and how can we really leverage our vendors to help us get the best of what we can out of it. So working through a pandemic is something that none of us anticipated in 2019 going into 2020. So we had no idea how to maneuver. But I think what has happened is it has, as always, put our industry into what we call the chef's world. We turn on a dime, we make it happen, and we keep going. And I think through this process, we've learned so much, but has also taken away some great learning opportunities. So we're really focused on sharing that with you with the upcoming projects that we're going to have, but also taking what we've learned in the past and integrating them both. So this is not just for us as chefs, it's for everyone in the industry. So really hope we can get everyone involved and on board and keep sharing the great messages that we have. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank, Matt, and Akeisha. Akeisha, you hit on two key themes that I think are really critical. You know, one is that in this publication, which is so beautiful and inspiring, and we really encourage everyone to check it out, it is aspirational, right? It's called the Almost Perfect Plant Forward University. And I think few among us would say that things right now are perfect or at all almost perfect. So we acknowledge the challenges and the realities that all of you are navigating as you do strive toward that vision. But it's this helpful thought experiment that the Chefs Committee conducted to at least say, well, where are we heading? What's our vision of what's possible? And now, as you said, is to, okay, take that vision of what's possible and marry it with the real world, the world we're living in, the pandemic, the new environments, and say what translates, how do we innovate, how do we pivot, how do we adapt our vision to the times we're living in? So I think that's a really critical point that you mentioned. And as you said, chefs are uniquely suited for that task. And then I also really love the point that you mentioned about working with vendors, with sponsors who are absolutely partners in this effort. So hopefully, especially during these member sponsor idea hubs, you can continue this kind of conversation. So perhaps over the coming weeks, if anyone has a chance to look through that document, it can be a springboard for those conversations. So I think we've got just some excitement coming through in the chat. Everyone's really excited to check this out. Very impressed with your work. So kudos to all three of you. Really appreciate it. And with that, I think we'll transition to our next presentation. But certainly for our attendees, if there are questions that you have about the document, either as you read it or just throughout the coming weeks, reach out to Akeisha, Matt, and Frank. And again, too, Frank, just want to really congratulate you on your promotion. And we know you're going to do great things in the Dining Directors Committee, so you're not going too far, my friend. But we certainly appreciate your leadership and are very excited for the two torches that have been passed. So thank you all
very much.
Thank you so much. So last but not least is yours truly. I am very humbled and honored to be delivering the MCURC Collective Impact presentation, as well as revealing the Early Learnings Report, which is our final publication that we are very excited to be publishing today. So first, I have to say, one of the MCURC's most important strategic initiatives that takes place collaborative-wide across professional roles and across member institutions is our Collective Impact Initiative. I'm excited to share with you the update on the past year of data collection, our progress to date, and the valuable insights captured in our just published Early Learnings Report. I have to first and foremost express my sincerest gratitude to Jackie Bertoldo, Assistant Director of Food Choice Architecture and Nutrition at R&DE Stanford Dining. Jackie is currently on maternity leave, and we couldn't be happier for her and her family to welcome their second child. She'll be back in January, and I want to sincerely thank her for all the work she did on this presentation, on the report, and for her continued leadership of the Collective Impact Initiative. She is simply a marvel, and we're extremely lucky to have her at the helm of this important work. Second, I would like to thank Rich Waite and World Resources Institute, who as our valued research collaborator have contributed substantially to this initiative. So taking a step back, what is collective impact? Broadly defined, we at the MCURC have adopted the framework from an article published in the Stanford Social Innovation Review. Here, I'd like to thank Dr. Wendy Slesser, Associate Vice Provost at the Semel Healthy Campus Initiative Center at UCLA, for first sharing this article with me and planting the idea of applying the concept in the context of the MCURC. As the article notes, quote, "Collaboration is nothing new, but collective impact initiatives are distinctly different. Unlike most collaborations, collective impact initiatives involve a centralized infrastructure, a dedicated staff, and a structured process that leads to a common agenda, shared measurement, continuous communication, and mutually reinforcing activities among all participants," end quote. This is the process we have embraced in the collaborative, and we see its power in together striving toward a common goal. For us, our initiative has focused on collecting data from each institution's protein portfolio, the mix of items that make up total protein purchases within each member institution's dining program, and measuring the associated greenhouse gas emissions. The reason we've focused on protein portfolios is that protein has been determined by Menus of Change and related science-based initiatives to be the single most important area of change with respect to advancing healthier, more sustainable menus. The opportunities for reimagining your institution's protein portfolio, and in turn, the opportunities for improving the combined protein portfolio as measured across the MCURC, translate to tremendous potential for collective impact. So here on the slide, these are the goals of our initiative. And they include understanding the scale of our impact, tracking standardized metrics, sharing solutions, and highlighting success stories. Where we've been, I'll briefly share the history and progress since 2017. So we launched the program as a pilot in 2017, initially testing the collective impact concept with only 7 universities and 3 indicators. Then we expanded to 5 indicators and piloted with 28 institutions. Based on feedback and insights from this pilot process, we ultimately defined 10 indicators, categories of purchased foods representing the most common protein sources from both plants and animals that contribute most substantially to environmental impact, calling this the protein portfolio. 2018 was our first full year of data collection. We received data from 28 institutions representing 53.5 million pounds of food. That's a lot of food. One thing you may notice on the slide is that even though ruminant meats made up just 7% of total protein purchases, they accounted for 55% of food-related greenhouse gas emissions. And conversely, while legumes, nuts, and seeds accounted for 7% of purchases, they made up just 2% of GHGE. Clearly, replacing ruminant meats with protein sources with lower carbon impacts represents an example of great bang for our buck in terms of reducing total emissions from our combined protein portfolio. 2019 was a pivotal year because we decided it was time to set some numerical goals. We realized the best approach was to set a collective target, meeting each member institution where they're at, while by no means limiting institutions that wish to go further, faster, and enabling each member institution to contribute at the rate their program can year over year. So in fall of 2019, MCURC set the collective target of a 25% reduction in food-related greenhouse gas emissions from protein portfolio purchases by 2030, aggregated across all participating institutions. This reduction will be driven by changes over time in the ratios of the various protein sources, aligning with the MOC principles that you see listed on the next slide. So 2019 was also our second full year of data collection. Next slide, please. So we had 26 institutions. This was actually a different mix of institutions though. We had some new schools join and some others pause their participation. Some of these were larger dining programs, however, as this actually represented 100 million pounds of food. Last year, we also introduced a new metric, pounds of CO2 per pound of food, or total food-related greenhouse gas emissions divided by the total pounds of food purchased for the given year. This is known as the intensity metric. This intensity metric is one way of conceptualizing how greenhouse gas intensive your food purchases are year over year, regardless of fluctuations in the amount of food produced or diners served. Even in years when food operations have grown or reduced substantially, such as with COVID, a downward trend in this metric can indicate progress towards less intensive food purchases overall. This metric was also included in the individual reports that we provided each institution. We also measured this metric collectively for the 18 schools that provided data for both 2018 and 2019. In this group, food purchases by weight grew about 6% from 2018 to 2019. But we saw a small yet notable 1.4% decrease in pounds of CO2 per pound of food over this time. As we continue to work collectively towards reducing the collaborative's food-related emissions, this is a small but positive step in the right direction. This brings us to 2020, COVID and so many new realities to which we've all learned to adapt. In response to feedback from our members and in acknowledgement of the substantial challenges that many of you are managing in light of the pandemic, we have decided to forego our typical mid-year data collection process, encompassing purchasing data from January to June of 2020, and instead look ahead to collecting annual data for 2020 in January of 2021. We understand that these are challenging times with rapidly shifting priorities, but please know that MCURC remains committed to providing the tools and support necessary to meet our collective target. So now we are excited to share the MCURC Collective Impact Initiative's Early Learnings Report. This report highlights key insights from the initial phases of the Collective Impact Initiative and outlines potential paths to progress toward our goal. This report was developed thanks to the exceptional feedback and input we received from all of our members. Over the past 2+ years of collecting and analyzing this purchasing data, we have refined our understanding of what it means to evaluate collective impact, allowing us to reframe how we approach this process in support of our goals. So these are the 4 main insights we've gathered about process and implementation, and I'll go through each one. First, baseline data collection is actually an ongoing process. As interest in the Collective Impact Initiative grows and new members join, participating institutions will be submitting data at different stages of their own progress towards GHGE reduction. This means that there will not be one quote-unquote baseline assessment, but instead there will be multiple cohorts at different stages of the data submission process that will be evaluated moving forward. Allowing the most flexibility for our members is essential to maintaining the collective spirit of this initiative. Second, expect trends in the data to fluctuate. It's challenging to assess progress towards a long-term goal with only a few data points to consider. Remember, we're headed for 2030. Fluctuating influences and circumstances, such as COVID, can have substantial effects on purchasing data year to year. But again, this is a long-term goal. This further highlights the importance of the intensity metric to continue to monitor progress, even as food purchases change over time. Next, empower each of our member organizations while continuing to focus on collective progress. Participants have continued to emphasize the importance and value of providing data insights at both the institutional level, through the individual impact analysis we provide each participating institution, and across the collaborative as a whole. Empowering each of our members to enact changes at their own institutions while also working together towards our collective target underscores the MCURC's potential to exponentially enhance the health and sustainability of the food system beyond that of any one university. And finally, leverage the breadth of knowledge, innovation, and creativity within the MCURC. From the earliest stages of this initiative, we have relied on feedback and input from the diverse roles and perspectives of members from across the collaborative. We are committed to engaging with our members, listening to their stories, taking their feedback, and evolving this initiative to continue serving the needs of each institution and the network as a whole in support of our goals. So as we transition from early learnings to informed action, we believe this crowdsourced approach is key. Based on member insights about how to support positive shifts in members' protein portfolios, common themes have emerged. We're calling these paths to progress, focus areas that we intend to expand on in the coming years in support of our 25% reduction target. In the early learnings report, you can see that each of these paths to progress also has a rich case study from one of our member institutions. So we'll go through each of these paths to progress. First, shifting consumer demand. As we've discussed, our students, our customers, are at the heart of all we do. While trends around the changing values and eating behaviors of Gen Z and upcoming generations are encouraging, customer demand and preference remains the #1 challenge to implementing more plant-forward menus and food purchases, as reported by our members. To accelerate progress, we must find new ways to inspire a majority of students and customers to make healthier, more sustainable food choices day in and day out that leave them feeling happy and satisfied. Second, creating a culture of healthy, sustainable food. In a recent survey of participants, changing organizational culture was cited as one of the top barriers to shifting protein purchasing behavior. To instill this kind of culture, where healthy and sustainable food is the norm, we know that leadership and buy-in are essential at all levels of our organizations. Significant progress towards lowering food-related GHGE will require a shift from encouraging each other to work towards change to empowering each other to take necessary actions within our organizations and across the collaborative. Next path to progress is inspiring culinary innovation. It's probably no surprise to many of you joining us, but we really believe that chefs and culinary staff have a central role to play in advancing healthier, more plant-forward menus and food purchases. MCURC members have observed that more effort and care is typically put forth into preparing foods that the culinary staff enjoy cooking and eating. What a surprise. Providing culinary staff with more opportunities to create new culinary concepts or platforms for plant-forward dishes can help to drive innovation and create buy-in from both staff and students. Next up is operationalizing best practices. One of the strengths of the MCURC network is our capacity to develop and share quote-unquote best practices in support of healthier and more plant-forward initiatives. However, emphasis must also be placed on how these practices are effectively operationalized and reinforced in our institutions and food service operations. There is no one-size-fits-all, right? We hope to create new tools, resources, and platforms to elevate strategies that enhance the uptake of evidence-based practices. And lastly, generating value for our students and customers. Food cost remains an important consideration for institutions wanting to incorporate more plant-forward menu items, such as meat alternatives. Some MCURC members have moved to producing plant-based alternatives in-house, like seitan or vegan cheese, in order to have greater control over costs and quality of ingredients. Others are finding creative ways to dispel the mindset that plant-forward or plant-based foods do not offer the same value as their meat-centric counterparts. Uniting efforts to positively shift protein purchases with strategies to promote greater value to our students offers a win-win approach for everyone. So, in conclusion, we recognize there are multiple paths to progress within each university, but also across the MCURC collectively. Entering year 3 of this initiative, we must keep in mind that we are still in the early phases of this effort. This is a marathon, not a sprint. That said, together we must continue to respond to the urgency the current health and climate crises demand, and that our collective impact initiative can address. And lastly, we expect that in the coming years, we will continue to leverage insights from members and evolve our paths to progress as we continue to learn and grow this initiative. So, where do we go from here? First, I encourage you all to read the early learnings report. And thank you again to all those who contributed their feedback and their case studies. Second, please coordinate with your colleagues on campus to be prepared to share your data in January. On that note, here I'd like to offer my sincere thanks to the Dining Directors Committee, led by Colleen Wright-Riva of University of Maryland and Paul Houle from the University of Colorado Boulder. They've made it their committee's focus to support the collaborative-wide participation in the Collective Impact Initiative. You may be hearing from them with further insight around the value of participating. And lastly, please feel free to email me in the short term and Jackie Bertoldo again in January for sharing any continued learnings along the way. Thank you so much. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. Seems like everything was remarkably clear, so we have no questions so far. So I'll bring back my colleague Eric Montel so we can kind of just discuss this early learnings report and the Collective Impact Initiative and where we go from here before we transition into our closing remarks.
Yeah, well, I thought it was really a great presentation, Sophie, and really interesting to see. I like the quotes that came up of the barriers. I mean, I think that's the one thing that I continue to see is we're having real discussions about what are some of the hurdles that I think members are trying to work through, and also how do they transform that. And interesting also to me was how some universities are making their own products and making some of their own items. I think that was a key learning too. what that potential is. And you and I have seen some of that in our travels to universities as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. And, it's interesting because throughout this process, before Jackie went on maternity leave, she and I were talking along with Ghislaine Chalamel, our research program manager, who you'll be meeting later on in the program. And we were talking about how the most powerful content in this report is really the words of the individual members, the quotes that you have, that you noted there. And that's why the case studies, I think, are really powerful, and encourage you to check those out. Because in a lot of ways, it's again, it's those of you out there who are implementing this, you're figuring out the ways to shift that protein portfolio. What does it mean to balance all of these competing priorities?
Yeah, and I see Frank is asking a question about COVID, and do we think that's going to skew the data and for this year and possibly even next year?
Yes, I mean, without question. You think about MCURC with collective impact. First of all, we're not the first collective impact initiative out there. We're also not the first to set climate targets. And there are all manner of corporations, cities, and so forth that have climate targets. And a lot of the kind of takeaways, I think, are that, again, it's the long game. So this is that key finding about expecting fluctuations in the data. So long as we're heading in the right direction in that decade span, things may go up, down. We may have a year of tremendous progress. Maybe we plateau. Maybe there's a slight dip, then a steep dip, because we really start to figure things out. One of the things we also expect to happen, and I think Rich Wade has suggested this when he's presented in the past, is that in some ways you can get some momentum, right? Because this is the first time we're sharing early learnings with you. So we had to change a small change, a delta, when we hadn't even really shared, hey, what's working, what's not working. This was just in that one cohort. And so as we get further along and we're exporting more of what's working, what are the success stories, my hope is that it starts to sort of snowball and you see actually steeper slopes later on in getting towards 2030. Now, it's not as if we need to wait until 2030 to start to make progress. However, it means that it's the key piece about it's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's not an excuse to let up on these efforts during the pandemic, but to acknowledge that it's thrown all of us for a loop, and it's absolutely affected it. The other key piece is this intensity metric, where, again, if the total amount purchased may change, our goal should still honestly be that intensity metric is heading in the right direction as well, which shows you kind of overall how intensive are the foods that we're purchasing.
I think that's a really good point. And then I remember you shared some research recently about countries and whether they were actually tracking food data in terms of their climate impact. And I thought that was really insightful. Maybe it'd be good for the members to hear about that as well.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a really great new report that just came out from World Wildlife Fund and Eat Foundation and a number of other partners there. I think it's called something like The Living Planet. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering the name of the report, but it was just released, I believe, last month.
And we could maybe send it out on one of our newsletters.
Yeah, we can send that out, and it's really fascinating. But there's an infographic that summarizes some of the key findings from that report. And one of the things that's just shocking is it basically outlines the problem, the percentage of greenhouse gas emissions that are coming from the food and agriculture. It's listed as 37% in that report, which is by far the highest I've ever seen. And then it really says that actually we have the chance to address that through 20% reduction with solutions that are at hand. And yet a remarkable 90% of NDCs, it's the reports that countries give forth on their 5-year progress in the Paris Agreement, they're not including food solutions in their climate. So it's just a reminder that it's up to us in many ways. And we as institutions with large purchasing power are as suited as anyone to make a meaningful contribution to the role of food as a powerful tool for climate action.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah. So with that, Eric, maybe you want to kind of share your closing thoughts for everyone, and we'll wrap this up and send everyone off to the networking break. But what stuck out for you throughout today's?
Well, one is I'm just grateful for everyone joining us today. Really, their time is valuable, and I just want to recognize that they joined us today, and many members, all the hard work and outstanding support. I get really excited when I hear the highlights of just the great work that's been occurring in the MCURC. as you and I work on this list of every year for the annual report, I go, it's just amazing to me how much work is occurring even with COVID. So there's also, I know, so much more in the pipeline, and we're going to hear about that over the 4-week series. And then, you talked about this idea of, we have some great members who just continue to contribute since day one. They've been in leadership roles as chairs or co-chairs for the past 6 years, and they continue to demonstrate, I think, to me, how important the work is occurring in the MCURC, and also how important it is for all of our future. To me, they're really what I would call the MCURC heroes. I mean, we couldn't have an MCURC without them, and also we couldn't do it without all of our members. And so I really want to thank all of our members for their continued support of the collaborative. And then I'm looking forward to next week. Next Wednesday, here we'll be again for part 2 of this 4-week series. The theme for next week is research, pioneering multi-site studies for the collective understanding of what works best for nudging student diners towards healthier, more sustainable food choices. So I know there's going to be a lot of great research that's going to be showcased and highlighted, and I'm really always looking forward to that. And I think our members are going to really see how that is so valuable to the work they do on the campus. I would just overall say, Sophie, I had a great time today. It was really exciting to see this amazing work that's occurring. And what are your closing thoughts, and what's happening next in our networking break? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So, the main takeaways, I think, for me are really, just in looking back on this past year, how productive this group is, even in a pandemic. And it shows that with so many
I think we're gonna hear from Sophie in a minute. She's probably just gonna have to join us. So, but I think there are so many great sessions that are here, and we're gonna go soon after this into a networking break. And I know there's a great topic that's there for everyone to enjoy. And I think Maureen said it. It's where we give a virtual hug to each other. I was saying, Sophie, how part of our getting together, we give this virtual hug to each other, and we're going to see each other in the networking session. And you see on the left side of your screen is a networking button. So you want to go to that event, and basically it's going to break everyone into groups, and there can be some discussion after there to continue to meet each other. It's our way to have this connection with each other continue. And we'll do that each time at each one of the sessions. So again, on behalf of Sophie and myself, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Please click on the networking session. We look forward to seeing you next week, week 2. Again, hosted by the MCURC leadership at CIA and Stanford. We're going to have some really amazing research that's going to be showcased. I know Ghislaine has quite a few also MCURC leaders queued up. So we'll see you soon. Thank you all, and go directly to the networking break. It's on the left side of your screen, and I hope to see some of you there. Take care, everyone.